I'm a TA expert, talent acquisition expert, and work particularly in the HR tech space and with companies like our panel today who are really specializing in making a difference in the world of recruitment on both the candidate side and the company side. So love hearing from everybody today. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end, and please throw your questions in chat as well. So with that said, Lovepreet, I think I'm going to turn this over to you to give a little introduction about RChilli and kind of what your vision was for the segment today. What are you seeing in a high volume recruiting, and really where does RChilli fit?
So I could start with a brief introduction and maybe share a few slides. Nothing too long and boring, just something to get the intro started. All right, you should be able to see the presentation now, right? So thanks everyone for this opportunity. Again, pretty much summing up everything that there is to talk about from the candidate's perspective, from the employer side, the trends to look out for. And I'll just briefly touch upon, what are the, sort of areas that we're specializing in and how it all started, what I see as our vision going forward to tackle the high volume hiring problem. So we've been in business since 2010. And back then we started with one single product, which is the Resume Parsing API. And resume parsing, as a quick overview, is the process where you pick up a resume from an applicant and you structure that data and you feed it into an ATS. As simple as that. And we started with that because that's the challenge of the problem we saw back then: automation of applications, and which is true today as well. So it's not only just limited to resumes, it's also people who don't have resumes. You can enable social media plugins, get them to apply with their Google, LinkedIn, whatever. If they don't have a resume, if they don't want to use a login, get them to import their LinkedIn profiles. We can do that. So the idea here is automating the first step of the candidate's application journey, which is helping them to get their data into the system, get them to fill that application form. And if we can do that in like 30 seconds, rather than having them spend 5 minutes, I think that's the goal here. And the next step after they've submitted their application is obviously the job that they've submitted it to. How good do they actually stack up against it, right? How good do they match up? And we do this by giving you search and match APIs that gives you 4 types of matches. 2 I'll talk about from the applicant side, and 2 from the hiring manager side. So when someone applies with their profile to a particular job, so they're interested in finding out, okay, this is my profile. Tell me how good I stack up against this job, if I'm a good match. And if not, show me additional jobs, right? I want to see other jobs that you may have in the system. So these are the 2 things the applicant is interested in. And on the hiring manager side, when they open up a vacancy, they want to see all the applicants that have applied to it and sort through them. Like we talked about, that step of sifting through hundreds of applicants. In some cases, it could be hundreds of thousands. And you could go back and do keyword searches. I highly discourage doing that. So use an AI system that uses the applicant's resume or their complete application, uses your job, and gives you the top matches from it. So it's not supposed to be an end all be all solution that these are the only applicants you should look at, but it gives you a good starting point of, just based on their application, these are the candidates that are a good fit. And these are the metrics, because we give you a score as well. So this is how they score against it and what this score is based on. It could be based on their skills, how many years they've worked at that job, any competencies that they're listed, or maybe they've not listed, right? And thirdly, once we've given you these matches, if there's some data that the applicant has not provided, we can also enrich that for you, right? So we can help you find their social media information, anything that's publicly available. We're not accessing any databases. We can help you to verify existing data. So we have a marketplace where we have multiple data verification providers. So you could create a workflow that starts with the applicant's profile, they apply, they get a list of job recommendations, and then they can also verify their data and get extra data pulled into their application. So that, as a quick overview, is what we do. And talking about high volume. Of course, if you're talking about hundreds of thousands of applications, thousands of jobs, you need a solution that can get rid of the data entry. That's the bare minimum that you would expect. And after that, it would help if we had a smarter way to go about searching and finding those best matches. Now, you could go back and do keyword searches and or operations, try to find someone based on specific phrases. But the challenge with that is if you don't have a particular keyword or a phrase that you're searching for in that person's profile, they won't show up. You won't find them. You won't get to them through the database that you have. And how we address that at RChilli is through the use of our taxonomies. So our taxonomies are a collection of skills, job profiles, education, and a bunch of other libraries that we built ourselves that helps counteract that. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're looking for Java developer, right? Pretty straightforward job title. Now, if you search in traditional databases for Java developer, you'll only find a result if the exact words Java and developer are there in the person's profile. What if they've written software developer, right? And Java is one of their skills that they've used at a particular job. What if they've written some other variant of that skill of that or of that job title? So this is where the power of the taxonomies come in. So we have this relationship of skills and job titles. So we could figure out, okay, they have not exactly written this, but hey, why don't you look at these similar profiles that pretty much mean the same thing? They don't have the exact keyword that you search for, but they have the general functional expertise the person has that may be a good fit for the job that you want to fill. So this is what we're bringing next. A comprehensive list of taxonomies that enhance our existing search, parse, match APIs. So I think I'll just take a brief pause here because I think this gives a very good overview of what we're doing as of today.
So, Lovepreet, I think I'm going to throw this back to you again and ask you a little bit about where you're seeing the biggest opportunities in the industry. And, looking at that, what do you think employers could be doing better? Where do you think they could use the tools at their fingertips better? Where do you think there are gaps?
So that is honestly quite a complicated question because there's, like I said, various moving parts to it. But I guess a starting point would be going back to what we discussed earlier, respecting the candidate's time, right? Respecting that, they spend quite a lot of time going through your forms, right? And case in point, if it's a teleo, they'll drop off immediately, right? And I think that's what we need to fix first. And once we take care of that, we respect their time, we ensure they have a good experience, we ensure that, like from their perspective, it's just 4 steps. I look at a job ad, I apply, and I expect to be shortlisted and hired, right? But from our side, we have to get through like 12 steps, right? From the hiring manager side. So if we can somehow go through those steps as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, get the right data, turn that data into actionable information that would help us make the applicant's journey much faster and better. I think that would be a good starting point.
Terrific. What excites you in the world of tech today? What do you think the biggest development opportunities are and spots for innovation?
So over the course of several years, we've been seeing a constant shift in what it takes to shortlist someone.
Mhm.
What does a qualified profile look like, right?
Mhm.
And this changes like more frequently than we could keep up initially because when we were just using resume for parsing, we were limited to okay, there's this data the person has provided, we structure it, hand it over to someone like Jovio and Impress so that they can use that data and build a good UI and candidate experience and then derive value from it. But lately that's not been enough. It's not just what's in the resume, it's also what you can actually infer from it, something that the candidate has not explicitly defined, right? Maybe they've missed a few skills, maybe they've just listed, this is what I did, right? This is my job title from the last job. So it's up to us to enrich the data, add more context to it.
Mhm.
And like I said before, that's where the taxonomies come in, right? Since we have that association of skills and job titles, we can add that extra data that's useful to companies to derive value from. And even more than that, like recently, 60% of the workforce in US doesn't even have a degree, right? So if someone's using a degree to shortlist candidates, you're already set to fail, right? You won't really find the best applicants. So it's things like that, keeping up with the market, keeping up with the trends, what's being hired, and staying a step ahead. And I think trusting the technology and a partner who can do that for you, who understands the nuances of what it takes to give you a perfect application that you can then run through your process. I think that's where we see RChilli, because our focus has always been providing the best AI APIs, and these APIs fit into other user interfaces.
I think, it's definitely an interesting time. And on the technology side and on the employer side, we continue to hear about the notion of disintermediation, cutting out middleman, job sites, things like that, ways to connect HR directly with the talent, ways to bypass, I don't know, communications technology and just go right from a text into setting an interview on a mobile device, things like that. What are you seeing in that kind of communications area? Lovepreet, is there anything that you're seeing that is coming up with your clients?
So definitely in terms of time to start, because like we saw earlier, QR codes weren't a thing like a couple of years ago, and especially not in hiring.
Mhm.
So it's just small things like that. And it all ties back to, what I said earlier, respecting the person's time. And you could do it in multiple ways, right? And not, my team might hate me for saying this because we've traditionally been a resume parser. It doesn't have to be a resume, right? It could be your online profile. It could be um, maybe not a form that takes 30 minutes, maybe a form that takes 5 minutes. Get them to list their top skills, get them to list their most recent job titles, right? And you can build a profile just from those, specific keywords like 10 or 12. And that's where the technology is going. You don't need a resume or a profile to be able to get employed, right? And you don't need to go through an application process. You don't even need to be on a laptop on a screen, and you can just email a resume in, right? If you have one. So it's things like that that take away the barrier to entry. And I think that's very crucial when you talk about high volume, because it's all a numbers game. So the more people you can actually add at the funnel at the top, the more likely are you to find the best matching candidate. So it all comes down to how soon can you go from 100,000 applicants to the top 50 or top 100, and how accurately can you reach out to them, right? So tech can do that for you. It can give you similar job recommendations. It can give you similar candidate recommendations. Instead of going through the applicants and matching them to jobs, you can actually upload your ideal candidate that has all the perfect criteria that you want them to be hired on, match against that ideal candidate, do a profile comparison. So there's many ways to think about this, but it all comes down to making things easier. Or someone who's been laid off, right, because of this pandemic, give them the opportunity to get back on the labor market. They may not have the skills needed after not being on the market for decades, right? So it's stuff like that that we have to think about. And of course, technology can only fix one part of it, but you do have to accept some sort of responsibility that it's our job. At least I do, right? That's why I'm always after my team. Okay, this is the AI that we're working on. Is it good enough to hire the best applicant? If it's not, you just cost someone their job. I think we have to take it that seriously.
So I want to first of all thank the whole panel for being here and everybody that's attended today. RChilli, HR Tech and Alliances. Look, Bree, why don't you close this out for RChilli today?
So removing PII is something we identified when we first started building out our match engine. So we identified it years back. So that's not something that you usually require, to match a person on. And I think that's the starting point of removing bias, doing away with data that's not needed, that's unnecessary, that would in turn, skew up the results and avoid a person being hired who's, the best fit for the job because of reasons that are biased. I think that's a politically correct word to use. So I think in terms of technology, it's critical that we keep evolving. We understand the market, where it's going, what do the applicants need, what does the hiring manager need, how is the market shaping up, and we prepare our tools not for something that's going to happen a year down the line, but maybe 2 or 3 years down the line. I think that as a technology builder and provider, I think that's critical for us. And another thing that I think is more of a personal opinion than my company's is having a mindset of always being helpful, right? And I think that's why I've stuck around with RChilli for 10 plus years now, because I truly believe in the ability of RChilli to help applicants get the best jobs.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today.